Hi, everyone. This is Kari. I am with Cheryl and Colleen, and we are the Consistently Creative crew. And we created the project recipe Deeper in the Woods traditionally, and I wanted to do a recording of creating it digitally. I attempted a recording and it didn't turn out, so I'm going to try again. So hopefully this time it actually works. So this is the project recipe that Creative Memories provided for us, and this one is a little different than a lot of the other project recipes that we've done in the past, insofar as the border punch that is used here is different than normal. So it is actually, I will show you a picture of it here. It actually makes a vertical border, but your punch is the same orientation as it normally is. So when you're doing this traditionally, you need to consider which direction you're punching to make certain that your trees end up on the correct side of your paper and that they don't end up upside down. But when we're doing this digitally, we have it a lot easier. But taking a look at this project recipe, like I always do, I like to take a look and see, are the two pages symmetrical? Are they mirror images of each other? And for this one, they're not quite mirror images, but they're very close. So the way I want to design this is I want to create the left-hand page, and then I will mirror image it to create the right-hand page and just have to make a couple of edits in order to make that work. One additional thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a border using our cutting system or our cutting tool in Artisan and use that to design this layout. So let's go ahead and get started. Pull this off on my other screen so I can refer to it as I need to. So I'm on a left page, and the way I always start is I like to start with a piece of paper that is 12 by 12 instead of relying on my background. So I'm going to go ahead and make it white. And I'm going to say okay. And then I'm going to use the tool on the home ribbon, arrange, align, center on the page. And it's been a while since I've shown people why I like to do this. I'm going to turn off the print guides. So I am going to fill this piece of paper just with a color, just so you can see it. So when I take this piece of paper and I lower the opacity on it using the quick access toolbar, you can see that the opacity just gets lowered, which is a great effect. And sometimes we need that, and we decide to utilize that when we're doing our design. So I'm going to show you, I'm just going to hide this in the Elements panel. I'm going to make my background that same solid color, and I'm going to lower the opacity of that. When I do that, you see these checker boxes turn up. This is inherent when you change the opacity of the background so that you're aware of doing that. Since these checker boxes don't actually print out, it doesn't really affect my final product. I do find them distracting. So I tend to prefer to work with my background being white behind everything. So I'm going to go ahead and change it back to white. And that's why I end up putting a full-size rectangle or digital sheet of paper on top of it, make it white. Then when I go ahead and if I put a background paper in here and I slide that in here, I can lower the opacity of this as opposed to my background. So just in case you haven't seen that in a while, I don't think I've shared it in a while, so I thought I would repeat and share that again. So the first shape we're going to make, I really didn't talk about that when I was looking at the layout here, so I will just kind of go over that. So there are basically three pieces. There's this light green one. There's this green plaid, which is a full 12 inches vertically. And then there's a larger plaid that's also 12 inches. So there's basically three pieces of paper. This piece that has the dots on it is just a little thin strip. Then there's these two photo mats, and then this is a punch. So I'm going to go ahead and put all of these individual pieces of paper on, assemble most of that page before I go ahead and do the punch. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to insert a content shape rectangle. And this first one is 5 inches by 7 inches. And I am going to use the colors that are on the cutting guide just to make it a little simpler. So it kind of corresponds with that. And this happened to be like a light green. Just gonna go with that and say okay and click create. Now I'd like this to be over on the left edge. I'd like it centered from top to bottom. So I'm gonna go back to the home, arrange, align, and I'm going to center it vertically. I actually did a pretty good job of that. And you can see from the X coordinate, it's right on the edge of the paper. Then I'm going to do this next strip of paper. And this one is going to insert a shape, another rectangle. This one is 5.5 by 12. And this one happened to be blue on the little drawing. So I'm going to use that. And this one, I'm going to just use the X and Y coordinates up here to do that. So if I want it to line up with the edge of this one, I want it to be at 5 and I want it to be at 0. So now it lines up very nicely on this edge. And then I need one final shape. And this one's going to be 1.5 inches by 12. And this in their traditional world would actually be the reverse of this blue side. So I'm actually going to just make it a darker blue. And I need this at 10.5 and 0. And that's the basics of that. I'm going to go ahead and put those two little framing strips. So this was going to be 5 by 0.5. And it was a light orange, like that. And this needed to be right on top of there. And I'm going to copy this. So copy and paste and put one below it. And that is in essence this. I'm going to go ahead and add my photo mats. So I have a rectangle, which is actually a square, 4.5 by 4.5. And I'm going to go ahead and create that. And that is over here, and they left enough room so that you could punch a shape out here. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste it. And I can copy and paste using the home ribbon. I can copy using the right mouse and click, copy and paste. I could also use Control C and Control V if I want. So multiple ways to do the same thing. Now I'm going to go ahead and add my photo frame. So an empty photo frame is 4 by 4, which is exactly what I want. So I'm going to select those two items. I'm going to center it horizontally and vertically together by using the second and the fifth alignment tool on the quick access toolbar. I'm going to just go ahead and add another frame, and I'm going to center the frame on the mat using the second and the fifth. And I think I just need one more photo. And this one happens to be a 4 by 6. And this one I want to align it up on the green one. All right. So let's take a look at our original layout and just see what I have left. So I've got these two trim pieces. I've got this photo mat and a photo. I've got these other two pieces. I've got a mat and a photo and a mat and a photo. And all I need to do is the punch here. I'm going to go ahead and select a punch right now, go ahead and do the cutting, and then I'll mirror image it because I think when I mirror image it, I would really like it to end up on that side of the page. So that will end up working out just fine. So there's a lot of options of things that you could do here. So you could add a border strip that you might have. You could add a ribbon. You don't actually have to do a punch, but it's been a while since I've done a layout and shared it here. So I thought it might be good to go ahead and do that again. So I am going to take this shape. I'm going to go to cut. I'm going to go to cutters. I'm going to go to straight, and I'm going to go to shaped edge. It says you have to flatten, so that's okay. So when you have the opportunity to do a shaped cut, you can select your shape. And by going to the different arrows, you can select different options. I am going to just go to the built-in kits because I want to just see some of the various shapes that are here. So we have lots of different things that we could use that are already built into Artisan. You probably also have additional ones that you could use. So, but these are some of the ones that we have that are easily accessible within Artisan. So I think maybe I will choose, why don't I choose this flower? So I'm going to select that shape. And you can probably see, well, maybe if I move it off, you can see that it's changed and it's now got that flower. And you could make it bigger if you wanted. So you could grab the tool here and just grab that edge and make it bigger or smaller. When you are making it bigger or smaller, you also have the ability to change. You could have changed it here with that shaped edge cut geometry width. You could change the angle of the entire cut. So if you happen to start out with it and it was horizontal and you want it vertical, you could change the angle. And sometimes it's really hard to get it exactly where you want it. So it might be easier to just type it in to 0. If you found that whatever item you have is flipped and you want to flip it vertically or horizontally, you could do that. You can adjust the spacing. So if you want more space between your items or less space between your items, I'm just going to move it over here so you can see. You can adjust the spacing, which is kind of a fun thing to do. One thing that I like to do, since I have this ability here, is to ensure that when I cut it, I'm actually going to end up not having a partial shape on my page. So if I have it lined up like this, I might want to adjust the spacing just a little bit more. So that way, I think, there we go. I'll get nice flowers there. So when you go ahead and cut, because the way this is actually set up, you might want to keep both areas so that you can end up with the shape that you want. So I'm going to go ahead and keep both areas for right now. So when I do this, I want to just share what I'm left with. So I'm left with this piece, and I am left with this piece. So, but what I really wanted was I really would like this set of flowers to be cut and to have it be separated from the rest of it, and then have this other part be, this blue part be the whole entire space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it right here, just using the straight edge cutter. And I'm going to go ahead and cut that just so I end up with the flower strip separate. I'm going to go ahead and keep both areas and cut. So now I'm left with 3 shapes. So I've got this one, which is not as long wide as I used to have it. And I've got this one, which is now just that border. And I've got this one, which is like the cutout border. So the shapes that I really don't need, I don't really need this. And I do want this one. For now, I'm going to change this one to just a different color. just so we can tell the difference. All right. This one, I believe, is one that I can just move away. Now this one, I'd really like it to be the same width as what I started out with, which was 5.5. And I really would like it to be 12. And I'm going to go ahead and put this at 5 and at 0. And then I want to move this on top. So now you can see that I've got something very much like what I have on the project recipe. Now, if you want, you can always change it and add some shadows and things like that in order to give it a little bit different look, enhance what you had and what you were trying to do. One additional thing that I wanted to share with people is, let's say you had this shape and you decided that you might want to use this again sometime, or you might want to have it available to you. So there's a couple of things you can do. You could save it as an embellishment. So if you right click on it and you select Save Embellishment, you can save this as an image in your personal art kit. So you could save it. You have options of saving embellishments in paper, so you could save it as an embellishment. I really want to save it as part of my personal art kit. And so I could select that, and I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to say Flower Border 1. It'll save it as a ping. It's got the information here as the default, and I could save it. And then if I go over to my content and I go to try to pull up that personal art kit, go to shapes and I go to my embellishment, you'll see this flower border is here. If I instead would like to save this as a shape, I don't really have a good way of doing it from this specific border. So what I really want to do is I want to go and I want to create an outliner of it. Change that outliner. I'm going to go ahead and remove the stroke on the outliner. And now I want to save this shape. I can save this. When I right mouse click on it and go to shape, save as, now I can select it as a shape and it will actually save it as a shape in that same personal art kit. So I can select that again. And let's say I'm going to call this flower border shape 1. And now when I'm here, if I go to the shapes tab in my content panel, you'll see I have this flower border. If I hover over it, see it says flower border shape 1. So now this is a shape as opposed to an embellishment. So this gives you a little bit more flexibility. It works just like other shapes, but I wanted to be able to show you how to do that. So I'm actually gonna delete that item because I don't need it. And I'm going to delete this and I don't need it. So now I'm back pretty much to my page the way I needed it, the way I needed to have it designed before I go ahead and create my right-hand page as the mirror image from this. So I will go over, I will shift to pages. I will click on the right arrow down here. I can insert a mirror image of this page. And the nice thing about this layout, all I really have to do is change a few dimensions of things and just shift a few things around and I will have my page, which is actually, a nice thing about being able to do digital. So this is my right-hand page. And the strip here was exactly the same size as it is on the left-hand page. This one happens to be 3 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to group my shape and the background for it. And because it needed to be 3.5 inches, I know that the right-hand side of it needs to be at 5, which is right there. You can see that I lined that up here. Now, because I have it and it's kind of moving off the page here on the right-hand side, that's not going to end up mattering because when I trim it, I'm going to have a nice edge there. So I'm just going to leave that. I'm not going to worry about trimming it or cutting it because I don't really need to. So now all of these pieces end up needing to be 7 inches wide, and they all need to be lined up at the 5. So I can do all of those at the same time, which makes it easy. These, I'm just going to delete these two. I'm going to delete the mat here because I don't need it. This one ends up being, we want a 3x3, and I need 3 of them. So I'm going to copy, I'm going to use Control C and Control V this time. I don't know what happened there. I'm going to copy this, paste, paste, and put these down here. So one additional thing for alignment, if I have all of these and I want them to be lined up in a nice in a row, but I also want them evenly spaced, I can go to my home, align, distribute vertically, and then it will choose the spacing between the first and the second, and it will apply that spacing for all the rest of the additional elements that are there, and that doesn't matter how many elements you have. Now I'd like it to be centered vertically, so I'm going to group them together, and I'm going to align center vertically, and then I'm going to ungroup them. And that will take care of that. And then I've got this one, and this one needs to be a 6x4 instead of a 4x6. And now I want to show you, I'm going to center it here, and then I'll show you something. Center it with the 2nd and the 5th. So what the original layout had here, you can see I've got the narrower strip, the next strip with the punch. I've got the 3x3 photos. I've got a landscape photo. I've got these other 3 pieces behind it. And then what they had left on their paper was enough to take a 3.5-inch square, cut it in the diagonal, and give it 2 photo corners there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that just so you can see. So I'm going to, I think I can nudge that over. There we go. I'm going to insert a 3.5-inch rectangle. Actually a 3.5-inch square. And I'm going to click create. And this one I'm going to cut on the diagonal, straight edge cut. So I know that I want it to be 45 degrees. And when I type that in, it's actually giving me the opposite corners to what I want. So if I put in negative 45 degrees, I'm going to get the corners that I want. I want to keep both areas, so make certain you check that and click cut. And if I kind of get them approximated, then I drag the photo on top. I can kind of eyeball it. Now I could do some things with measurements, but I don't know that I really want to do that. I don't need to be that precise with this. And there is my page. So I'm going to go into 2-page view so you can see how the final thing looks. And you can see I have pretty much the layout here. I'm going to pull over the project recipe. You can kind of see this is what it looks like. This is their sketch. So I've got pretty much the same thing as what they have. And I'll show you the layout that I created. when we did this, just so you can kind of see. I didn't include the narrow strips above and below on the two outside panels. And once I put my title and some other things in there, I didn't feel that I really needed them, but I hope that this gives you some ideas on how to actually create this layout. I hope that you enjoyed watching this. Thank you so much for your time. And if you would drop a comment or give us a like, we'd really appreciate it. If you do create the layout, please share it with us on Facebook on our Consistently Creative Croppers Facebook group. We'd love to see what people are creating. And thank you again.